Kelly Garni, Quiet Riot's original bassist, joins me to share inside details of his friendship with Randy Rhoads, the fallout that ended his time in the band, the shock of Randy's death, and how he rebuilt his life beyond rock and roll.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock, the podcast for those about to read and rock. I'm Eric Senich. Our guest is Kelly Garni. Kelly started his career as a founding member and bassist for the band Quiet Riot, which he played with for their first 2 albums before transitioning to a career as an EMT, then photographer and artist. He's the author of the 2013 book, Angels with Dirty Faces, opens up on his life, his friendship with guitarist Randy Rhoads, and the band's early days. He's also the author of the 2022 book, Naked Vegas, the highs and lows of a photographer's journey, the 90s. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Eric, how you doing? And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure, and thanks to Greg Prado, who helped set this up. Greg, one of the favorites of this show, so thanks to Greg. So let's talk about where you grew up. You said 2 boys who wanted to grow up and be rock stars. You're talking about, of course, yourself and Randy Rhoads.
That's my story. Yeah, we went and saw Alice Cooper when we were about 12 or 13-ish, right in there, pretty young. And when we saw all that, we just said, that is who we want to be. We had already been learning how to play. Actually, by that time, we were somewhat advanced in our playing, more so than most kids would be. And then by the time we were 13, we did our first club on the Sunset Strip. Yeah,
you moved around a lot prior to meeting Randy, right? In Alaska at one point.
Yeah. My folks were a bit of a set of gypsies. So it was okay. I didn't mind.
Yeah. Was it in Burbank, California where you met Randy?
Burbank, California is where they finally settled. And that's where really my story starts, is we're in Burbank and I meet this weird kid in school, Randy Rhoads, and nobody wanted anything to do with him. Nobody wanted anything to do with me because I was a geek. And so we gravitated together, and he was already playing guitar, and then he sucked me into the whole deal. And he needed a bass player, which would be really a good thing for a guitar player to have when he's learning. And as he learned, he taught me.
How old were you when you met him?
I was 11.
11 years old. And he's sitting all alone at the cafeteria table, right? You noticed him sitting there, and you walked right up to him and said, "Hey, man, what's up? Can I sit down?"
Yeah, because I usually had to eat alone too, so might as well hang out with this guy.
He was a quiet kid?
Yeah, he was real quiet and low key. He stood out though, by the way his hair was, his dress, his mannerisms. I mean, by all accounts, pretty much the general opinion of him was he was a gay kid, and he most certainly wasn't. And it wasn't long before he had me kind of looking like him and looking weird, and then I was a gay kid.
Yeah, so
and I was really not a gay kid.
Yeah. So you say he seemed to almost have an aura around him.
That's right. Yeah, there was just something special about him. I don't know if you've ever seen or been around anybody in your life, and you just looked at them, and you just went, "Wow, they're not like me. They're much more than I am, and everybody else around here, they're special. They're different. They're from another planet." And that was Randy. It struck me right away. And as I always say, I really felt like I was the only one in the whole entire school who saw it.
And you first saw him play the guitar, went over to his house.
Went over to his house and he played. And I went, oh, this guy's pretty decent. I had messed around with the guitar previously to that. And I didn't take lessons. He took lessons every day, or pretty much, or once a week, I should say. Um, I took lessons every day from him. Um, but yeah, he progressed very, very quickly. I always say, Randy didn't get better every year, every month, or every week. Randy got better every 2 minutes.
Progressing that fast. His
Yeah,
mom, a music teacher, right?
right.
And his dad, what was his
Also a
relationship?
music teacher.
Also a music teacher. What were his parents like? He worshiped his mom. What was his relationship like with his dad?
Well, when I came on the scene, his mother Dolores, or Big D as we called her, and his father Bill had already separated, and he lived back east in Connecticut. And we never saw him. Randy never really talked about him. Randy was 6 when he left, so Randy didn't have a whole lot of memories to talk about it, and frankly, I wasn't that curious about it. I mean, his mom was such a big personality that pretty much filled up um, the whole book for, well, Randy's parents. Let's see what they're like.
Well, you answered my question because I am in Connecticut. And I have had so many people tell me that there was a Connecticut connection with Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
I was always told that his mom had a school here in Connecticut. I said it can't be because she's on the West Coast. So now you've answered that question. That the father, did he have a school here in Connecticut? Because that's the story I was told.
he worked for the Ovation Guitar Company.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he did, but I mean, he worked for the company, and I think he was probably in the upper management end of it, and perhaps the design. I really don't know. That would be an interesting question to find out. Um, but he had enough juice that he sent Randy a guitar, which was the guitar that Randy always played when I first met him. He already got it. His sister got an acoustic guitar, a very nice one, and his brother got a really, really super nice drum set made by Gretsch, who Ovation was affiliated with, and so they got some instruments from him, and I don't think a sales rep could just start handing out stuff like that.
No. And I wonder, he may have done some personal lessons with people because maybe that's what it is too. That because I've heard people say that they would go to somebody in Connecticut for music lessons, and maybe that's what he was doing. Wow, that's fascinating. Wow.
That could well be.
Yeah.
And he had 2 children. He has 2 boys, and so Randy had 2 half brothers.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned his grandfather played guitar, and then most of Randy's mom's relatives had been musical in one way or another. So he comes from a musical background for sure. That was
Absolutely, yeah, reeked of music around there. Everywhere you went in that house there was something musical, an instrument or a picture, or something that said, you know, this is a music place.
was he doing a lot of the things that he would be doing when obviously we see him, in these videos with Ozzy doing all the the finger work and all that stuff. Was he still kind of coming into his own as far as that? You said he was advancing rapidly.
Yeah, but by the time we were like 16 and we're doing Quiet Riot, he had advanced to the point where he was guitar hero status. I mean, as soon as people saw him, that was it. They were hooked. And so, yeah, he had a lot of tricks that he would do. One thing that's never ever talked about that he used to do, well, when we were growing up to kind of hone our skills, we used to do a lot of what they called keggers, which is a backyard surfer bash put on by a bunch of stoned out surfers. And they put out flyers all over the place, which seems like a pretty unwise thing to do. And a couple hundred kids would show up, and they got beer and they got a band. And sometimes it only lasted 1 or 2 songs. and then the cops showed up and busted up the whole thing. But more often than not, we got to play for maybe an hour.
Did you go to see the Van Halen was playing some? Well, you weren't too far from Pasadena. Van Halen was playing the
No, we
backyard
weren't,
parties.
and at some point we became well aware of Van Halen, especially when we were at the Starwood, as we were for a number of years, and we knew they were playing down the street at Gazzari's, which wasn't really our type of a club, as the Starwood was. Of course, the whiskey was the whiskey, but it had more of a punk rock scene going on there. So, we kind of avoided that place. The punkers didn't like guys that looked like us either. So you had the jocks and the punkers wanting to kill you.
Yeah. You mentioned the Alice Cooper show. That was really the inspiration for you guys to start a band. Was Mildred Pierce your first band?
Yeah, I guess it pretty much was.
And that was based on Mildred Pierce as in Alice Cooper kind of thing, right?
Right, that
Well
was the
name.
thinking. Yeah, I mean, you got to remember these are a couple kids here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we had that, and then and that consisted of me, Randy, whatever drummer we could get, and but eventually it was Drew Forsythe, who went on to be with us in Quiet Riot, and is the original drummer of Quiet Riot. And another guy, well, a guy named Guy. Guy played guitar and sang, and that was our band. He only did rhythm guitar, so that was fine. And we had that band, and once again we were playing keggers.
Get every episode of Booked on Rock commercial free by grabbing a Backstage Pass on Patreon. It's just $5 a month and a great way to support the show. Check the show notes for the link or visit bookedonrock.com to sign up. Quiet Riot formed in, was it 1973?
No, I believe it was 75.
75. And this includes Kevin Dubrow on lead vocals, Drew Forsythe on drums.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Drew was in Mildred Pierce. All right, so let's get to this now. Kevin was suggested by a friend of yours, and you tell the story in the book. Talk about how you first meet Kevin, who was described to you as a really tall, black-haired Rod Stewart type, and you were not impressed at first.
Yeah, that's me and Randy were constantly on the lookout for a singer, and we had been all night at a very infamous Hollywood club, Rodney Bingenheimer's. And so we were there. We went there quite a bit. We even played there at least once that I can remember. And we also, believe it or not, rehearsed in that club during the daytime. And so we were hanging out there. It got to be too late to really go home. And by that point, our parents had pretty much given up on setting curfews and grounding and all that. It just didn't
They gave up on that.
Yeah, it didn't exist in our world. We didn't worry about that. And so we needed somewhere to stay. And we there was a girl there named Hillary who was a good friend to everybody. And she said we could stay at her place for the night. So we stayed over there. And we shared a bed. And when we woke up in the morning, I woke up first, and I heard her in the kitchen on the phone, and she was talking to some girl who went to a concert the night before and met this guy, and that was Kevin Dubrow. And so she was talking about him, and so I heard this, and that he was a singer, or said he was a singer, more said he was a singer.
Yeah.
So I heard that, and I said, I'm going to work on this. So I went in there, I got out of bed, went in there, and I said, hey, there's a singer, somebody, who? And she said, oh, my friend met this guy, and he says he's a singer, and he's sort of a Rod Stewart type. And I went, well, I said, well, get his number if you can. She goes, okay, yeah. And so she got his number, and that's how we were born.
You went to his house, right? His mom answered the door.
we went to his house. Yeah, we had been very nearly killed in a car crash on the way there. So we stopped at a liquor store, and even though we were very underage, nobody cared back then, and we bought a bunch of booze. And because we were unnerved by the near fatal experience we had, and um, and we showed up on his doorstep, a bunch of kids, with all these bags of booze. Hi, is Kevin here? And his mom's just like, oh boy, you know. And but she was cool and is still cool to this day. I still know her, and she's still
Wow.
a wonderful person.
So was it kind of sort of like an audition? Did you say, hey, let's hear what you got? Or I think I remember in the book that he was giving you stuff, but there was no audio to it.
Well, he did do that, but he also has his version of things that he always would tell magazines. And then there's my version. Take your pick on who you believe.
Yeah, right. But it was like a video of him performing somewhere, but no audio.
Yeah, there was video of him with no sound on it. It was 8 millimeter, which didn't have sound. That didn't come along until Super 8. And he, was just jumping around. He looked kind of goofy to me and Randy. I mean, we really wanted to get like a Alice Cooper type of guy. We wanted somebody weird, and this guy wasn't that weird. And plus, his look, we had pretty long hair and stuff, and his whole look just, it wasn't us. And so we left after drinking a bunch of that booze, and which he didn't have any because he didn't drink. And we had him sing along to some records. It was okay, It's hard to tell, singing along to a record. Um, but we just in general, he wasn't our type. So we said, "Don't call us, we'll call you." But he did not heed this advice and called us constantly, wanting to know when we were going to start rehearsing and putting a band together. And I said no. Randy said no too. And but he kept calling, and he was relentless. And finally, Randy caved and said, "Okay, you can come over." And so he came over. His version says, uh, and remember, this is what he always said in magazines. Um, he says Randy showed up at his house with an amp and his guitar, which we've never ever done that for anybody ever that we went to see, drums or singing. Um, you had to prove yourself to us first. We knew what we had. And so, but yeah, Randy showed up with a guitar and an amp, played for him. Kevin was amazed at Randy's talent, and oh my God, look at this. And then he sang for us, and he sang so great, we said, okay, let's do it, Um, my version is certainly more brutal, but
Yeah.
has a happier touch.
Yeah. Well, Randy suggested the name Little Women at first, right after the Louis May Alcott book, and that was scrapped. A new name would come about in a rather unusual way. There's a connection here to the band Status Quo. This is interesting.
Yeah, and Kevin, does get credit for this one. Um, but yeah, he was at a concert. He would go to concerts. Kevin actually was a photographer too, and he actually used it. That's kind of what my Naked Vegas book is about, a guy using a camera for a certain purpose. Um, but he used a camera and would get press passes to all these concerts so he could go backstage and, be in the pit and all that. And, it was a pretty good angle. It worked out good for him. And so he was backstage, and a band playing that night was a band called Status Quo from England. And he was in their dressing room, and I don't know how the subject came up, but he was speaking with the guitar player, Richie Parfait, and he made the statement in a very Cockney English accent Oh, if I ever had my own band, I'd call it Quiet Riot. And Kevin thought he said Quiet Riot, but what he said was quite right. So we were almost named Quite Right, but um, but thanks to Kevin's hearing abilities, um, it came out Quiet Riot to him, and so we thought it was a cool name. So we were
It
like,
really
yeah,
is. Yeah. Quiet Riot.
yeah.
It really is a cool name. Yeah. You
And
can't,
what's very interesting is I still tour around here and there. I just got back from Australia last month. I was there for a whole month, and so I'm still kind of busy musically. But I go to this little tiny town in Indiana, and I love going there called St. Meinrad. They have once a year they have a big festival, and I'll go back there and play, sell books, and sell merchandise, and hang out and have a good time. I love it there. But they actually put together a band back there called Quite Right,
so there is now a Quite Right.
and we do Quiet Riot songs.
So eventually Quite Right did surface. And the early gigs, some rough shows. One story of when you played at a biker bar in Van Nuys called Rock Corporation, and that's a notoriously rough bar. What happened that night?
Yeah, it was. That was. I mean, we really weren't the right band for that place, but we were looking to play anywhere, and a lot of bands played there. So, um, well, and all, we should play there too. Not anticipating the response we would get, and it wasn't so much that our look. That was almost excusable at that point. People just said, they look like that. Um, the problem really is that our warm up band, or maybe they were the headliners, who knows, was the house band, and they were like your typical everyday, roadhouse movie uh, biker band playing biker music, and then we get up there and we're playing our stuff, and it wasn't right for the biker bar. And not only that, we were actually a little bit better than them, if not a lot better. And I think that had something to do with it too. But they started unplugging us and all this, and then Kevin said something in the mic that really pissed them off, and they charged the stage. Actually, quite a few people did, and to kill us. And so quite the fight ensued on stage, and we had big roadies, so I mean that kind of saved the day for us. Um, but we weren't any slouches ourselves. I whacked a guy on the head with a I think it was a beer pitcher.
Wow. Yeah. Kevin was
Rock
known
and roll.
rock and roll. Kevin was known as guy. He would open his mouth and say things that, would get him in trouble with the media. Was he like that?
This was probably his first time, although it didn't make the papers or the magazines. But yeah, it definitely got somebody's attention.
Yeah. If they ever make a movie on Randy Rhoads, man, these are the stories, this is the stuff that you'd see.
I agree. Yeah.
The early days.
I agree.
Yeah.
I get approached about somebody doing a movie on the whole thing. My book actually gets approached a lot for a movie.
I would think.
But so far, nobody's come up with, the right credentials to do it. I'd have to get some cooperation from some people. However, if it was done as sort of a fiction based on true events kind of a thing, I think pretty much anybody could do whatever they wanted, because the basic story of two kids wanting to grow up and be rock stars is a pretty interesting story.
It is. It is.
And you know what? It was an interesting way to live.
Hey guys, we'll get back to the show, but first I want to tell you about an exclusive deal for Booked on Rock listeners. Get 15% off any purchase at oldglory.com. Over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture. Merchandise featuring legendary music artists like Bob Marley, The Beatles, Grateful Dead, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and many, many more. Go to oldglory.com. Make sure to use the promo code BookedOnRock. Also find a link in this episode's show notes, or just go to bookedonrock.com and click on My Deals. Our guest is Kelly Garni, founding member and bassist for the band Quiet Riot, photographer, artist. He's the author of the 2013 book Angels with Dirty Faces and the 2022 book Naked Vegas, The Highs and Lows of a Photographer's Journey, the 90s. So eventually it's time to tap into Hollywood, and you debuted at the infamous Starwood Club, which you mentioned, and another band on the scene, Van Halen.
We had actually, Randy and I had actually played at another club, which was open and then closed. And we had played at Rodney Bingenheimer's club as well. So the Starwood wasn't our first appearances in Hollywood on the Sunset Strip, which the Starwood wasn't even on. So we were no strangers to it, and everybody else in the band were. So, but the Starwood, yeah, that was the place to really go see good rock and roll, upcoming rock and roll. You didn't have cover bands in the Starwood. Everybody played their own music, and that was what made it cool. And you know, it was all ages, and I am not kidding you. If you were a 14-year-old kid and you walked up to the bar and ordered a beer, you'd get it.
Wow. Yeah, those are different times.
Yeah.
Rodney Bingenheimer is part of Van Halen's story because he's the guy who played You Really Got Me on the radio, because Rodney Bingenheimer was a well-known DJ. And the story is, David Lee Roth had, this is just after they had gotten turned down by Bill Aucoin. They had the demo tape and it kind of felt a little rejected, but Dave said, we're not going to give up. And he brought the tape to Rodney, said, hey, we just put together a demo with Gene Simmons of Kiss. You should play this. And then Rodney played You Really Got Me. And the rest is history, right? Yeah.
Right. He used to play us quite a bit on his station too.
Cool.
And we certainly appreciated that, but he was always really good to us. I know there's some accusations floating around out there about him, but I see those and I'm like, you girls got to be kidding me. I mean, I saw what went on in that place. And for anybody all these years later to go, oh my God, I was molested or whatever. There wasn't any chick in that place that was not asking for it.
Yeah. So, I've read those stories.
If you want to claim anything out there, claim, well, I got taken advantage of because I was stupid and young. That's a believable argument because that would be the truth.
Rodney's still with us, right? He's still
around.
Yep. Well, yeah, I mentioned Greg Prado. He helped to set up this interview, and he wrote a great book on Quiet Riot called Bang Your Head, Feel the Noise, The Quiet Riot Story. He interviewed you for the book. I read it,
and I really liked it.
Yeah. Greg's great. Mm-hmm. He's a great author, and he is a prolific author. He has many books, and this is one of them, and one of the many good ones. And he did interview you for the book, and you shared a story, which is also mentioned in your book too, about the time Randy tried to meet Eddie Van Halen at Gazzari's.
Right. Yeah, he went down to Gazzari's because people were talking about this guy, and Randy said, well, I'll go see what the deal is, And so he went there, him and his girlfriend, Jan, and he wanted to meet him. He saw him play, and he went, yeah, okay, the guy's good. And so when they got all done, Randy was trying to get backstage to meet him, and he did get back there. And you got to remember, Van Halen was doing all cover tunes at this point. Every once in a while, they'd sneak in one of their originals, but that was the deal at Gazzari's. Is a more upscale crowd went there that weren't, the rowdy, unpredictable way underage bunch at the Starwood. Um, and so he did get back there, but Eddie was acting kind of crazy and bouncing off of walls and
In his underwear.
yeah, in his underwear. And Randy was like, oh, okay, well, not the best time to meet this guy. So, um, so he that was his opinion. He said, well, yeah, he was really good, but he looks kind of nutty, you know. I
And he
mean,
never talked to him again. That was it.
that was it.
Was there ever, this is the big question, that a lot of these articles they try to play up, there's a competition between Randy and Eddie. And Eddie would be asked about this too.
Yeah, there was no competition, and most certainly there was no competition in Randy's world because Randy didn't compete. It just wasn't in him to try to compete. He couldn't. The way his brain was wired is he could not form the thought, "Oh, I'm going to be better than that guy."
Randy he wasn't a big drinker, was he? He didn't do alcohol, drugs, was he? Or was he? Did he like to party? Did he?
I was worse. Okay, admittedly, I was way worse. But he was moderate compared to my excessive.
Yeah.
That's a good word. Good word. Excessive.
You're right. With the new name in place, our sound seemed to branch off into a much harder direction. We wanted a sound that lived up to the name, and it soon became apparent that Kevin was a rather good songwriter. So reading that, knowing that you have Randy Rhoads on guitar, it's still hard to believe that the band recorded 2 studio albums with little success. You even mentioned Robert Plant seeing you guys, and he comes backstage and says, you guys are good. So what happened? Because those first 2 albums only released in Japan.
Yeah. And the whole situation was just not conducive to little kids. And that's basically what the problem was. We had some guys that had money and spent the money on us and had big, impressive offices and drove nice cars and lived in Beverly Hills and all this stuff, and we were basically hypnotized by all that. And, there's a term, a star maker, and that's what we thought they were. They were people who were going to make us and take us to the next level. Unfortunately, their methods didn't align with what me and Randy at least did. Drew kind of went along with it, but Kevin was real into it, and so Kevin was the dominant force in the band. If you went against Kevin, you were going to be in for some serious arguing, and who wants to do that? Um, so so yeah, we were being groomed, basically into something that we really weren't.
What was the label that you were on for those first 2 albums?
CBS Sony.
Okay. And it's Quiet Riot 1, Quiet Riot 2. Why wasn't it released in the US? Why only Japan?
Back in those days, the record business was a totally different thing. You had to basically have a deal over there. You had to have a deal in America. You had to have a deal in Europe, and they were the only ones that would give us a deal.
Okay.
So we were 1/3 of the way there.
Were you happy, and are you still happy with those first 2 albums, the songs on those albums?
I absolutely am, and that's what I played in Australia. I did an 11-song set off of those 2 albums, and nobody's ever done that yet. And so I did something similar in Japan, but it wasn't as many songs, and I did it a little bit different in Japan, where like every 2 songs or so, I had different players. But in Australia, I had a band that had worked for months to really learn this stuff, and they did a really, really good job. They're called Osmosis, and they do an Aussie tribute thing, And I said, well, these guys are going to be perfect for this detail. And they took it real seriously, and they learned this stuff great. I mean, first time we had rehearsal and ran through the set, it was flawless.
Was Randy given pretty much total freedom to do what he wanted?
No.
No, because some people say it doesn't sound the same as the Randy that you hear on future albums.
And you have to remember, Randy was a very driven person towards progressing. So when he got into the Ozzy situation, this was a whole new musical animal to him. And so he approached it his way, looking at it from that perspective. Not to mention, he had the influence of Bob Daisley, who I've become very good friends with, and and Lee Kerslake. These were guys that were much older than us and had tons and tons of experience. Randy was pretty young when he got into the Ozzy thing. He was like 23. And so, Randy based his progress on what he had to accomplish in that band, which was clear to Bob Daisley and Lee. And so they kind of pushed him in the direction he needed to go. And there he went. And boy, did he.
I think you can hear the first two albums on YouTube, but they're not available on the streaming services.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, they're and if you can find one, they're big time collector's items, cost a lot of money and all that.
Thanks so much for checking out the Booked on Rock podcast. If you've just found the podcast, welcome. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your support. And make sure you tell a friend, a family member, share on social media, and let people know about Booked on Rock. And if you do like the podcast, make sure you subscribe, give a 5-star review wherever you listen to the Booked on Rock podcast. We're on Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, and on YouTube Music. You can check out the full episodes on video, along with video highlights from episodes on the Booked on Rock YouTube channel. Find it at Booked on Rock. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. All right, chapter 15, you write, quote, everything in my life was about to change. Everything I had been doing would soon be gone. Every hope and dream would be wiped out. The person I thought I was would be gone. The person I wanted to be also gone. If ever a guy was handed a clean slate and told, you fucked up, here, start over, it was me. So let's get to the fight you and Randy got into over Kevin, which turns ugly. You felt it was time to get a new singer in. Randy disagreed.
Yeah, that's what it was really all about, and it wasn't the first time that we had an argument, discussion about it. I always wanted Kevin out of the picture because then I felt that we would be, even if we did lose our big cushy management, that paid for stuff, maybe we wouldn't. Maybe they would have said, okay, well, you guys are like that and we should go that direction. You'll be better. Who knows? I mean, I had hopes. And when me and Randy were having that discussion that particular night, things did get out of hand because, well, I had robbed a bar the night before, which could happen to anybody. The bar was on fire while I did it. And I wasn't even a looter, although maybe I was.
Yeah, looking back.
Yeah, I think I was a looter. But anyways, so we were just, enjoying the fruits of my little stunt. And things got out of hand in the argument. I told him to leave. He didn't. And that's when things escalated to a gun getting pulled and fired as a warning shot into the ceiling. And then a very big fist fight, which certainly wasn't the first one me and Randy had ever been in. We had been together since I was 11 years old. We were like brothers. Of course, we're going to roll around on the ground and fight and run home crying after that, which usually was me. But yeah, it just, now all of a sudden I was somebody else. And so, Randy wanted to continue with it. That was the thing. And I said, well, I said, I'm okay with that. You keep doing it. I just can't do it anymore. It was just getting silly. And, you know, all I'd ever done in my life was music at that point. I didn't know anything else about the world. So I had always wanted to be a fireman, and a fireman told me, get in the ambulance first and work your way up. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. So
And
it was a mutual thing, both sides.
yeah. Oh, it was very mutual. Yeah. Yeah. He volunteered to go with me. He said, he goes, I'll go with you. And I said, no, 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 no. Doop, doop, doop. You keep it up. And we remained friends, till the end. And that was really good. In the end, that it turned out like that, because I really think if I would have continued in rock and roll, and maybe I would have followed Randy into Ozzy's thing. If I'd have gotten together with Ozzy, let's say, Randy went with Ozzy and said, nope, got to have this guy, Bob Daisley, see you later. Um, which would be like, now to me would be like amazing. Because there's just no way I could have pointed Randy in the direction that he and Lee did. So, um, in a way, it was a good thing. But if I would have gone along with Randy and we got into that situation, I probably would have rolled more with Ozzy than anything. And for me, that wouldn't have been good. I probably would have died. I probably would have died staying in rock and roll at all with anybody. And that's, I didn't feel bad walking away from it.
Yeah, that's good. It's like somebody was an angel on your shoulder was looking out for you, saying it's time to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
the other
They,
way.
they, they said you need to go on a different road, and that's what I did.
So the story of how you found out Randy had died, it's very much like a pre-internet type of a story where the news doesn't hit as quickly. Nowadays you find out this stuff right away. Somebody asked you how you're doing.
Well, I don't listen to the radio or anything, and it was all over the radio. So
Yeah.
I still don't listen to the radio. I never have.
So is there a coworker or a friend or somebody just
It was a friend. Yeah, I went to his house. He said, "Come on over here. I got something to tell you." And I went over there, and he told me.
yeah, I mean it was so sudden too. It wasn't like it was something you could plan for. It had to hit you really hard.
Oh, it was pretty bad for me, and I went home. He came with me, and we went to my house for a little while, and my mom came over because she knew Randy, and um, and then after a few hours of just nonstop crying, um, I decided, well, we need to go to California. I need to get to the family, and that's what I did. We drove all night straight to their house.
And it's pretty obvious how much Ozzy loved him.
Yeah, it is to me. Um, people let Sharon get in the way of all that. But when you talk to Bob Daisley, who considered Ozzy a great friend all the way to the end, there was a whole another side to that whole thing, to where it really was Ozzy and Lee and Randy and Bob.
Yeah, well, they were called Blizzard of Oz. That was the name of the
Right.
band.
Yeah, there's that. And, people say, oh, Ozzy didn't contribute anything. I've heard that said a lot. And he probably didn't until the song was done. What's the singer even going to do?
Well, yeah, Bob Daisley's the one I've heard interviews with him where he says Ozzy was great at coming up with a melody over the music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I mean
exactly.
you give him a song and he was going to take it to the next level. I remember doing that was a brief interview I did with Kevin DuBrow. It's like 20 years ago. And he said Randy would have definitely gone on to create classical music. Do you agree? Do you think he would have done that?
His version.
Yeah.
Randy's version, I should be more specific. He would have done some standard stuff where it's just him and a guitar. But eventually, I think he would have created a type of music um, that was brand new to everybody that nobody could have ever imagined, and it used instruments from all over the world. And I'm very into world music, and I hear what people are doing with different instruments in different countries, and some of it's pretty metal, and some of it's not. But all of it is cool. And so when you listen to like Siberian, Mongolian, countries like that are pretty out there. There's a girl coming to Vegas. I might go see her. She's called Nini, and she's Japanese, and she plays like Crazy Train, and
Oh yeah, I
you
think I've heard
know
of her.
all sorts of songs on like traditional Japanese instruments. So she's playing not too far from my house, and I may go there and see her because I see her on like Instagram or Facebook or somewhere. But with those kinds of influences, hitting Randy, I would have liked to have seen what that would have resulted in.
And for you, you became a photographer, eventually an artist. You got some of your work behind you there, and
Yeah,
you wrote the book Naked Vegas
I
in
did.
2022. Yeah, what was this? This is a great story. This is from the 90s, taking photos of beautiful women, and it sounds like a good gig.
Once again, we have to go back to a camera as being the culprit that instigated all this. And I had learned years before that you could use a camera to pick up on girls. It was, easy to walk up to them and go, "Hey, can I take your picture? You're beautiful. I'll send you one." Blah blah blah, whatever. They never said no, not back then. Try it now, um,
Right.
and be an old man. But um, I was out of divorce and I needed, some social outlet, and that's what it was. And so I started out photographing girls I would find at the mall, and I'd shoot them for free just for experience. And I wasn't very good. I sucked. And eventually I learned what I was doing. And it didn't take very long for the whole thing to take off. I Some of these girls, and they were really pretty girls, so they really were models. So that made sense. And they were taking my pictures to modeling agencies, and the agencies were going, "Who did this? This guy's good," and they liked him. So they contacted me, and the next thing I know, I had a new business on my hand, and all I did was shoot models all day,
Wow.
and I made like 10 times more money than I made in the job I had.
Whole new career.
Yeah,
And okay. And now
and
today,
that
what
lasted 20 years.
20 years, and what are you up to today now? You still dabble a little bit in photography and art? You said you do
I
play.
don't do really any photography anymore. Honestly, I'm burned out on that. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of pictures. I mostly do my art, which is like that, which is what I do is I go to old mines that were built in the 1800s, late 1800s, 1890s, 18, you know, um, 1888, things like that. And I just walk around with a bag, and I find rusty old metal objects on the ground and stuff that nobody makes anymore, and stuff that is genuinely trash just laying on the floor or the ground that nobody would ever even give a second glance to. But I see things in it. I see like photos, pictures.
You see art.
Uh, I see art, just like the one behind me. Like that's for the most part made out of hinges. And I found all those hinges, and I was already putting pictures on this type of steel that I find out at these places. And so I said, well, let's start putting the metal on there. Let's see what happens. I had to experiment with about 1,000 different types of glue to find one that worked with rusty steel, and I finally did. And so I arranged the hinges in a star pattern, and I went, okay, that's cool.
It
And this is
is.
the very first one I ever made. So I just put different things in there. Well, what would it be like to make a fit? What would it be like to make a comment? You know, what would it be like to make vegetation? And so that's how it's all started. Now I'm like, gosh, I must have done 40, 50 pieces by now, and almost all of them have sold.
I was going to say, okay, so people can buy these. Is there a website people
Yeah.
can go to?
No, I had a website for a while, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. So,
So you do
people can
local.
just hit me direct on Facebook. I'm not by any means hard to find.
Okay.
Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I'll
um,
I'll put the link to your Facebook page up in the show notes. People can
yeah,
find out more about you.
and
Yeah.
um,
Both your books are still on Amazon. People can get those.
yes, let's get to those books. Well, this is the Angels with Dirty Faces book.
Yep.
Um, Definitely my bestseller. It is sold very well. I was approached to do a book. They offered me a bunch of money, and I really wasn't ready to do a book, but I said, okay, I'll sit down and I'll write one. Luckily, I had gone to college in the late 80s to learn screenwriting. And so I had some writing experience and I enjoyed writing quite a bit. So as much as I didn't want to write this book, it's not so much I didn't want to write a book. I don't want to tell the Randy Rhoads story, and that's what they wanted. So I said, okay, I'll get this out of the way. I'll cross this off my things to do list. And so I wrote the book, and it's a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Um, and I thought the whole entire time, I said, oh, this book's going to suck. Nobody's going to like it or buy it. And boy, was I wrong.
Oh no. Yeah.
Um,
And I've seen you've gotten a lot of coverage for it when the book came out.
yeah.
A lot of articles. It's become a good source of information for Quiet Riot history, Randy history, and just an overall great story.
What needed to be done was the story needed somebody to tell the legit truth. There's a lot of mistruths about Randy spread from here and there, and I wanted people always ask me, what was he like? It's not so much about how did he play this or that. I don't really get that kind of questions. I get what was he like as a person. So I said, well, when I write a book, I'm going to show you what he was like as a person, and I'm going to give you the honest to God truth, uh, warts and all, quite literally. And so that's what I did. And I think people appreciated that because when you read it, you're like, there's no way this guy would make this up. This isn't a lie. And when you look at who Randy was, where he was, what he was doing, and all that, the image that's portrayed uh, for him by people who would probably like him to actually be like that isn't true.
You mean, well, I mean, everything I've heard is that he's just a great guy, really quiet.
He was a great guy, really great guy. Never really had any enemies unless we were on stage in a biker bar. And um, he was a fantastic person. But, we were teenagers and we were wild and we were growing up in Hollywood. And as far as we were concerned, there was no rules for us. And so we pretty much let it all hang out, did what we did.
No regrets.
Yeah, no regrets at all. So, that's the story I wrote because that's the real story.
Yep.
And because, of course, that would happen. What else would happen? You think this guy is gonna get into all that and be this perfect angelic guy that some people would like you to believe he was? I don't think so. It's too easy to get caught up in it all. And not only that, as teenagers, who wouldn't want to be caught up in it?
Find the Booked on Rock website at bookedonrock.com. There you can find all the back episodes of the show, the latest episode in video and audio, links to all of the platforms where you can listen to the podcast, plus all the social media platforms. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Also, check out the Booked on Rock blog, find your local independent bookstore, find out all the latest hot rock book releases, and before you go, check out the Booked on Rock online store. Pick up some Booked on Rock merch. It's all at bookedonrock.com. And then the other book is Naked Vegas, The Highs and Lows of a Photographer's Journey, the 90s. That's on Amazon.
There we go.
There it is.
It's a hardcover, so it's really classy.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the thing that I like about my book that, let me find the right chick. Oh, these two are perfect. What happened to me was I started off doing fashion models. I did a lot of fashion work. I actually love fashion. And so I was doing a lot of work like that at first. But the interesting thing is that all these models started asking me about doing nudes and asked me if I, did nudes. I didn't ask them. They were asking me if I would take naked pictures of them. And I'm like, sure I will.
Don't have to ask twice.
You're right. And so I did many, many, many times for money. If it was for, I should say actually usually for money. But if I was doing an art project or something like that, because I eventually became a artistic nude photographer, and that's what this book is really a lot about. I didn't charge the girls. I had a stable of about a dozen girls that I could call up and say, "Hey, man, let's go to Death Valley and take some pictures," and they'd be, totally down for it. So these models I had were fantastic. They were always down to do anything. Climb up, get in the water, lay on top of this, whatever. They did it, and they were all great. And the beauty of this is, especially if you look at these two.
Wow.
Now, it looks like everything is there, but what's missing? I'll tell you what's missing. Their necks aren't tattooed. They don't have a bunch of fucking metal sticking out of their face. Girls didn't look like that back then.
No.
So what I managed to do is capture girls, before that trend came along, and and get something that'll probably won't exist again for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't seem to be going away. This led to me becoming the number one photographer of escorts in Las Vegas, which probably we have tens of thousands of, who knows. But that was right when the internet was invented. They all needed pictures. And that's where I really, really made a lot of my money. Was from that. And they were generous, they paid well, they tipped well, different ways. And and they were just great. And then I became friends with most of them. And I some of them I'd ask them, I'd say, "Hey, are you interested in doing some art photography, like this kind of stuff?" And I'd show them what I was doing. And they go, "Oh yeah, sure." Then I'm not charging them. But again, here.
Oh, wow, man. That's friggin' awesome. That one on the right there, the black and white.
Yeah. So the book is mostly pictures, but I'll tell you what, it's got a really good story because I do write in it. somewhere. Oh, there, there's a page with finally some writing on it. Look at all that woman with not one tattoo on her.
No.
So it's just an interesting story of how it happened and how it all ended. The ending was ugly. When it was all over, it was sad, and it just was.
When did it end? Early 2000s?
No, actually, about 2014 was when I
okay.
totally had it,
Yeah.
and or had gotten beaten up so bad that I was done. And that was, because of the internet, because of digital photography and all that. Suddenly, 8 million people were photographers. I had too much competition.
Oh, I
In fact,
see.
I ended up as a wedding photographer. Back then, I was getting $5,000 for a wedding. And I had all these photographers out there willing to do it for $300. And so people would start going to them, and business just went downhill slowly. I fought for 5 years as a wedding photographer to keep it going. And I didn't mind doing weddings, actually. Most photographers run like hell from them. But they don't bother me at all. I did them well. And, let's see a wedding picture. Let's see. Because
Boy,
there's some
it's
in here.
crazy, though, how the technology, internet, all that stuff just changes everything. There's a wedding photo. Yeah.
So I was real good at it. And, and I have the kind of personality that can roll with the crowd. Personality can get you through a lot of stuff. I learned that when I worked ambulance.
Well, you and David Lee Roth, rock stars who became EMTs.
Well, he did a little bit. He didn't do what I did. He kind of rode around. No, I was out there, boots on the pavement. Sometimes boots in the blood.
The Booked on Rock podcast is part of the Boneless Podcasting Network. If you're a fan of classic rock and classic film like I am, go to boneless.lovable.app to find over 20 great shows there. That's boneless.lovable.app, or just go to bookedonrock.com, click on the logo. It'll take you right to the Boneless Podcasting Network. It is what you want it to be. Listen with confidence. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about all.
I appreciate you, Eric, because I think your whole books and rock and roll thing is an important thing, particularly when the writer was a participant in the things that they wrote about. But I applaud your idea. It's unique. I've done a million interviews, and yours is the only one that was like, well, what about the books? What about the books? What about your art? What about you doing this? It's always so centered on Randy this, Randy that,
Oh, yeah.
And we sure went there, but at least I got in some good plugs about my book.
Sure.
Books.
I'm pleasantly surprised at how well books in general still do, but rock and roll books are still, people love to go out and buy these books and find out about all their favorite bands and just read a great story.
Well, Quiet Riot didn't escape being in my Naked book. They made it there.
All right. Where are you? Are you on the right?
From where I'm seeing, I'm on the left. I'm in white. And it says,
it says me. Well, that explains. Wow. Look at you, huh? With the long hair, man.
Because I do tell where I come from. And this actually, doing stuff like this was actually very, very, very handy for being a photographer, because I've been on the other side of that lens. So I knew what it felt like.
Yes. Hey, Frankie Benelli, you knew, right? He wrote.
Frankie Benelli and I were good friends.
Yeah. He wrote, did he write the foreword for your book? Am I right?
He wrote the foreword in my Angels book.
Right,
yeah.
Right. The late great. Yeah, the late great. Yeah, Quiet Riot still going. They have Who's is it Rudy Sarzo now?
Rudy's in the band, Alex Grossi, Jizzy Pearl, and oh gosh, that drummer. And he's such John Kelly, I think his name is.
Do they play any of the stuff off the first two albums?
The only song they do is Slick Black Cadillac, which ironically is about my dad, and I
Get out.
received no writing credit for it.
Get the hell out. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's about your dad. How so?
My dad drove Cadillacs, and my dad was he was a dude.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well is Slick Black Cadillac, so is it on one of those first two albums and then they redid it for
Yeah, it's I can't remember which one. I think it's on the second one, but
wow. Okay. Oh yes, you're right. And then it ends up on Mental Health re-recorded.
Right. Yeah, because it was a really good song.
It's a great song.
And I actually, this happened to me. Okay. In 2024 on New Year's, the current version of Quiet Riot with Rudy asked me to play with them here in Las Vegas on New Year's, which is a pretty big deal to play anywhere on New Year's. And so I played live with them, and I did Slick Black Cadillac. That was the only song. I walked up on stage. Rudy put his bass on me, and
That's
off
awesome.
I went in the Cadillac. See you guys.
Yeah. Wow.
So, first time in 45 years, I was in Quiet Riot.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Here I was about to wrap up the interview, and you gave that nice little piece of Quiet Riot history. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, Kelly Garni, thanks so much for doing this. And again, thanks to Greg Prado for making this happen.
Thank you, Eric. You were great to talk to.
That's it. It's in the books.